Pleasant morning to each and every one of you. For today's lesson, I, Jesreth Daniel Farofaldane, together with my groupmates Mr. Noel Fabiosa and Ms. Rose Vargas, are going to talk about global migration. Let us start this off with our topics, intended learning outcomes. At the end of this section, you are expected to, number 1, distinguish different global civilizations and categories. 2. Analyze political, economic, cultural, and social factors underlying the global movements of people. And number 3. Reflect on the experiences of the overseas Filipino workers. During the Cold War, leaders all over the globe agreed to categorize the world into 3 categories. First world refers to states which have high income and are capital-rich. Yung mga countries on this list are the first world countries like Japan, South Korea, Canada, and USA, and several other countries are countries that are more developed and more industrialized. Second world refers to the former communist, socialist, industrial states. Dito yung mga countries naman is yung mga communist bloc countries like the former Soviet Union. Example of this is Russia and Ukraine. Also part of the communist bloc countries are China and North Korea. Third world refers to nations not aligned with either the first world or second world, which are also called developing countries. Nung Cold War, they used to categorize this world or the third world countries kasi these countries like our country, Philippines, and countries like Brazil and India, for example, ay ang mga countries na maliit lang yung ambag on international trade and economy. The aftermath of the Cold War ended the bipolarity of the world's hegemonic powers, which were held by the Western Bloc, United States, its NATO allies, and others, and the Eastern Bloc, the Soviet Union and its satellite states. Few examples of the satellite states of the Soviet Union are Poland, Hungary, and Albania. By 1989, U.S. had military alliances with 50 countries, therefore bringing to life the American era. This time, USA became the remaining superpower of the world. USA emphasized their power sa paraan ng pagpropromote ng free market capitalism by relying on their strong democracy and capitalist market. Fareed Zakaria, 2008, refers to this as the post-American world, which is illustrated by the diffusion of power from states to other actors. This diffusion of power signals the rise of the rest, which gives other states the power to play roles in the world's economic and political arena. In connection to this, Huntington, 1996, claims that Asian nations are expanding their economic, political, and military strength as a way to show the power they can be capable to hold in the world. Thus, the American era, which includes the post-American world, refers to a period of power imbalance. The classification of countries into 3 was changed into 2. Developed countries are countries that have progressive economies and advanced technological infrastructures, while developing countries are low-income countries with less developed industrial bases. Developed countries has higher quality of life because sa striving economy nila and advance yung mga tech. Nakasali sa top 5 most developed countries are the following: Norway, Ireland, Switzerland, Iceland, and Hong Kong. These countries have higher HDI or Human Development Index. Developing countries, on the other hand, has low HDI and lower gross domestic product than developed countries. These countries have less technological innovation and poor education. Inequalities pushes people living in developing countries to seek better opportunities in developed countries, or sometimes this ongoing movement of people from one country to another is called migration. This form of migration is called external migration, which is migrating or moving to different state, country, or continent to seek better opportunities for people from developing countries. The world is becoming connected. Connectedness of nations, ethnicities, and states is the new trend in international arena. Civilizations become global civilizations. This may be due to the easy access from country to country. The civilization and the culture na nandoon is nadadala natin everywhere we go. Parang nadadala natin yung civilization natin by bringing our culture with us. Samuel Huntington argues, the rivalry of the superpowers is replaced by the clash of civilizations. In this new world, the most pervasive, important, and dangerous conflicts will not be between social classes, rich and poor, or other economically defined groups, but between peoples belonging to different cultural entities. This theory says that we are in the post-Cold War world. Yung differences natin culturally and religiously is the cause of, or the primary reason of our modern conflicts. Huntington argued that future wars would be fought not between countries, but between cultures. Because we have different cultures, iba-iba rin yung mga morals and opinions natin. So that ends my report, but we still have Miss Rose Vargas to continue this discussion.
According to Huntington, global civilizations are divided into the following categories: Western, Latin American, Islamic, Sinic, Hindu, Buddhist, Orthodox, Japanese, and African. At present, people from these global civilizations constantly move from one place to another just to achieve economic stability, democratic freedom, and holistically good life that their home countries might not be able to offer. According to Haywood, cosmopolitanism literally means the adherence or belief in the world state. It is the ideology that all human beings belong to a single community, as a concept that can be linked to globalization. It began its journey when the world moved towards a single moral community from simply believing that the world could be governed by one state. In the analysis of Poge, he identifies the three elements of this concept, which are the individualism, universality, and generality. In individualism, cosmopolitanism believes that a human being is the ultimate unit of moral concern. Second, the element of universality, wherein he asserts that all human beings are of equal moral worth. And lastly, the concept acknowledges the element of generality, which implies that human beings have necessary concern for each other. There are two of migration, internal and international migration. The internal migration is any movement from one place to another in the same country. On the other hand, the international migration is a movement from one country to another.
For the continuation, from the rise of diverse civilizations, many scholars believe that social inequality, economic depression, and freedom of deprivation are the factors why people move from one place to another. it is clear that migration also has its own catalyst from its fuel, the population growth of region or country. And they occur at present, and since the concept of cosmopolitanism adheres to the quality and moral integrity among men, it plays a role in why people migrate. In line with that, internal migration is also known as local migration and has always been driven by economic sustainability. In the midst of globalization, nations around the world engage in trade to promote and strengthen relationship among them. And according to Henry No, 2009, transitional relations exist in the present world because countries trade with one another and population move across state boundaries. So that's the reason why there is no global government that could govern all nations. Migration exists due to transitional relations and the growing demand for economic. It is defined as the form of social behavior that both shapes and is shaped by broader social and economic structures and processes of transformation or internal migration institution of 2011. However, in the definition of Boswell 2002, migration is not only rooted in economic aspirations but also political motivations. To better understand the global migration, three categories of this trend were created. First is the voluntary economic migration. Second is forced displacement, and last is the refugee crisis. Voluntary economic migration is rooted in the pursuit of economic stability. It is usually seen in the condition of people in the global south, such as in the region of Asia and Africa. People from these regions move to another countries which have steadily growing labor markets and can provide them high salaries. This kind of migration is illustrated by overseas Filipino workers or OFW. The second and third categories, on the other hand, refer to how people are forced to migrate. According to Boswell, 2002, forced displacement and the refugee crisis could be traced to the factor of tyranny or corruption or the fear of violence such as civil war. And another effect of migration in the Philippines is the brain drain. For example, some skilled workers here in the Philippines attracted by the rates of other countries and the working condition. So they migrate and grab the opportunity there. In 2009, the Philippine Institution of Development Studies found out that 50% of employed Filipino immigrants have tertiary education and only 14.5% of them are managers and professionals. 26.6% of them are working as technicians and clerks, and the rest of operators known as service workers. That's according to Zosa and Obeta 2009. Thank you.